current affairs department here. Renaissance Communications Incorporated today human rights advocate director wants the removal of public school registration fees, says thousands of children remain locked out of classroom because families cannot afford the cost of education. Rambaswa County Administration signs a memorandum of understanding with the Kabbalah Resources Liberia Limited to establish hardship protein. Away from Liberia, Ebola vaccine could take 9 months as the tour rises further. WHO warns these plus many more the reading of the news bulletin sports our package on today's edition of the program. News Desk will take a break to be back. Many thanks for rejoining us. We are powered by Orange Liberia and EcoBank Liberia Limited. But at this point, we join Sheikh Sanoe to set the pace with the reading of the news bulletin. Good evening.
Good evening, Johnson. Good evening, everyone. President Joseph Baka extended congratulations to government and people of Cameroon on the occasion commemorating the country's National Day anniversary. According to Foreign Ministry release, President Baka, in his message addressed to Paul Biya, praised the people of Cameroon for their continued effort in preserving and peace, as well as pursuing sustainable national development over the years. President Bouaka stated that as Cameroon celebrates this significant occasion, the government of Liberia looked forward to further strengthening the cordial bilateral relations existing between Liberia and Cameroon. The Liberian leader also expressed confidence that both nations will continue to collaborate in promoting global peace, security, and economic development. President Bouaka further prayed that Almighty God will grant President Biya wisdom and strength as he continues to lead the people of Cameroon toward greater prosperity. The Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, LDEA, has confirmed that 4 dismissed officers formerly assigned at the Rabat International Airport appeared on Wednesday before a Detective Judicial Circuit Court in Margibi County. According to the LDEA, the officers were dismissed and forwarded to the Ministry of Justice for criminal prosecutions on May 5, 2026. The dismissal followed a full-scale investigation conducted by the LDEA Board of Internal Inquiry and Professional Standards Division into their alleged involvement in tampering with evidence, specifically cocaine seized from defendant Quita Dolo on July 12, 2025. Dolo is currently on trial for drug trafficking charges. The LDEA reiterated its strict zero tolerance policy against corruption, misconduct, and any criminal act that compromises national security and public confidence. The agency emphasizes that no officer is above the law and remains fully committed to transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. The dismissed officers include Joe Logan, former commander at RIA, Abdullah Sherry, Chief of Operations, Lavita Flowers, Deputy Chief of Operations, and Mepapua Dolo or Duo, an operative. The LDA said it will continue to closely monitor the matter and further cooperate with the Ministry of Justice throughout the prosecution process. The Human Rights Advocacy Director of Human Rights Watch, Joe Becker, has urged the Liberian government to abolish public school registration fees. warning that thousands of children remain locked out of classrooms because families cannot afford the cost of education. Speaking of the Human Rights Watch initiative on school fees and barriers to education in Liberia under the theme, without education, there will be nothing. Becker describes school fees as a major barrier preventing children from enrolling and staying in school. Becker outlined 4 key recommendations at improving access to education in Liberia, increasing government investment in the education sector through progressive taxations and other measures to ensure schools receive adequate resources to provide quality education. The Human Rights Watch official said the proposed reforms are realistic and achievable. According to calculations by Human Rights Watch, annual registration fee paid by families with children in public school total about $5 million United States dollars. Becker described or further highlighted the Excel project, which she said has committed US $80 million in school grants to support maintenance and the operation of costs for schools, helping them reduce or eliminate registration fees. She said the initiative is expected to reach 90% of Liberia's primary schools by 2029. Becker stressed that investing in free and quality education is essential for Liberia's development, urging that the countries cannot build a strong workforce or reduce poverty without educated citizens. Meanwhile, Joe Becker has presented findings from the 6-month investigations by Human Rights Watch during an initiative on school fees and barriers to education in Liberia, saying the organization found that financial barrier remain one of the biggest obstacles preventing children from accessing education. Becker said the investigation revealed that school registration fees are forcing thousands of Liberian children out of classrooms, pushing many into child labor, delayed enrollment, and eventual dropout. According to Becker, Human Rights Watch researcher visited 21 schools across 5 counties, including Monserrato, Grand Bassa, Margibi, Bond, and Nimba counties. She further emphasized that the organization has interviewed nearly 180 people, including parents, teachers, principals, school administrators, and child advocates, as they have conducted peer-to-peer interview with more than 60 children and young people directly affected by the education system. The foundation said revealed that registration fees in Liberia's public schools violate both national and international laws protecting children's right to education. Becker warned that its fees are contributing to what she described as Liberia's average enrollment crisis, citing the country's most recent school census. She said more than half of primary school students are at least 3 years older than the appropriate age for their grade, while more than 60% of students at the junior and senior secondary levels are average. She recounted meeting a mother who said her daughter did not begin first grade until age 12, and her son entered school at 13 because she could not afford a course. She further explained that even children who managed to enroll often miss classes because parents struggle to keep up with registration fee. At the same time, the Deputy Minister for Children and Social Protection, Gbarntolmah, says the Liberian government remains committed to ensuring that every child has access to free, safe, and quality education despite persistent financial and social barriers keeping many children out of school. Tolmah described education as a fundamental right and a critical tool for breaking the cycle of poverty and vulnerability. She acknowledged that the report's findings were sobering, noting that financial and social barriers continue to prevent many Liberian children from accessing quality education. Tolmah, however, stressed that the government is taking steps to address the situation through programs implemented by the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. Tolmah said the project also supports the government's effort to remove children from street selling and return them to classrooms. She further disclosed that the ministry, in collaborations with the Ministry of Education is supporting the Back to My Classroom campaign, which has helped enroll and re-enroll vulnerable children into schools across the country. The Deputy Minister emphasized that social protection and education must work together, noting that government intervention in and supporting vulnerable households are intended to reduce the economic pressures forcing children into harmful situations instead of classroom. The president or the presiding justice in Chiba Wednesday denied and dismissed the bill of information filed by Yeke Kolba seeking to overturn his expulsion from the House of Representatives. Associate Justice Yusuf Kaba, according to a judicial correspondent, denied Kolba's request for lack of proper service. Justice Kaba also ruled that raid or prohibitions accompanying the state order were not properly served upon the House of Representatives, consistent with Rule 26.5 of the Rules of the House, and consequently, the House and cannot be held in contempt for action taken in the absence of lawful service of the court precinct. He said instead of serving the sergeant at arms, the marshal allegedly served the receptionist and a computer operator assigned at the offices of the speaker and chief clerk. The records before the court, according to Justice Kaba, did not establish that those employees possesses actual or apparent authority to receive judicial process on behalf of the House of Representatives. He stressed that nothing in the rules of the House suggests a service upon any employee other than the sergeant at arms, adding that for proper service to be made to the House of Representatives, it must comply with the House rules. Meanwhile, lawyers representing Yeke Kolba took an exception to Justice Kaba's ruling by announcing an appeal to full bench of the Supreme Court. The Gbarntolmah County Administration has signed a memorandum of understanding with Kavala Resources Liberia Incorporated to establish a scholarship program valued at $500,000 for students of the county. The scholarship program is intended to provide financial assistance to deserving students from within the county, thereby enabling them to pursue higher education in various fields of study. Speaking during the signing ceremony, Superintendent Kai Johnson described the initiative as a major step toward strengthening education opportunities for young people in the county. The scholarship program, according to him, represents a significant investment in the future of youth and of the county. Senator Gbarntolmah File, on behalf of the County Legislative Caucus, praised Kavala Resources for its commitment to supporting education and human capacity development, adding that the scholarship fund will have a lasting impact on the county. Representative of Kavala Resources Liberia Incorporated, Brunel reaffirmed the company's dedication to contributing to the social and education advancement of communities in which it operates. The U.S. 5,000 Scholarship Initiative is expected to benefit numerous students from all districts of Gbarntolmah County, particularly those facing financial challenges in continuing their education. The Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection has concluded a strategic partnership meeting with development partners intended to strengthen support for social protection, social child protection, and gender equality programs across Liberia. Gender Minister Madam Gbemi Horace Collins says the government is intensifying effort to ensure development partners' investment directly benefit vulnerable communities across the country. Speaking to journalists following a strategic partnership coordinations meeting in Monrovia, Minister Horace Collins said the discussion focused on supporting partners' activities with the government's development priorities under the AARD agenda. According to her, the development partners to review ongoing projects in various counties and assess how those initiatives strong emphasis on social development, child protection, social protection, and gender equality. She further explained that the gathering also revealed or review result-based reports intended to measure the effectiveness of projects being implemented in communities. Minister Harris College stressed the importance of identifying which organizations are operating in specific communities, the types of projects being carried out, and the number of people benefiting from those or interventions. The Liberian Senate on Tuesday invited authorities of health ministry to provide updates on the status of volunteer health workers due to consistent complaints from health providers across the country. As a result of the absence of the health minister due to international engagement, Deputy Minister for Administration Martha Morris was accompanied by some deputies at the Senate hearing. During their deliberations, some senators raised serious concern about the poor presentations of the entire records of volunteer health workers across the country. As a result, a motion was passed for reappearance of the health ministry before the Senate this Thursday. The president of the University of Liberia, Dr. Lily Mapanya, has dismissed claims suggesting that the institution plans to increase students' fees, describing the report as misinformation driven by selective interpretations and social media sensationalizations. Dr. Mapanya clarified at no point did she announce or authorize an immediate fee increase for the upcoming semester. Instead, she said her comments were focused on the broader financial realities facing higher education, particularly the rising cost of operations and the widening gap between university expenses and current student fees revenue. She explained that her remarks addressed the imbalance between income generated from student fees and the cost of delivering services those fees are meant to support. Dr. Mapanya further stressed that she did not announce any immediate plans for fee adjustment. She cautioned against what she described as a growing culture of misinterpretations in digital media, where partial statements are often amplified without full text. Dr. Mapanya says such destructions distract from meaningful discussions universities' real challenges and priorities, including sustaining academic quality and managing operational costs. While acknowledging the speed at which information spread online, she urged the public to focus on accuracy and full context rather than speculation, stressing that no decision has been made to increase fees for the next semester. And out of Liberia now, the World Health Organization says it could take up to 9 months before a vaccine against this particular species of Ebola is ready. Two possible candidate vaccine against the Budibugyo species are being developed, but neither have gone through clinical trial yet. WHO advisor Dr. Vasi Murphy said on Wednesday. WHO chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom said there have been 600 suspected cases of Ebola and 139 suspected deaths, but numbers are expected to rise given the time taken to detect the virus. Speaking to journalists in Geneva, he said 51 cases have been confirmed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the first case was reported and told in neighboring Uganda. On Sunday, a WHO declared public health emergency of international concern, but said it was not a pandemic plague. This button is back to Johnson for the continuations of the program.
Sheikh, Sanoe, and the news bulletin is a regular feature here on News Desk. Let's bring it up first development on the program. The Liberian Senate on Tuesday invited authorities of the Ministry of Health to provide updates on the status of voluntary health workers due to constant complaints for health providers across the country. As a result of the presence of the absence of the Minister of Health due to international engagement, the Health Minister for Administration, Martha Morris, was accompanied by some deputies at the Senate hearings. During the deliberations, some senators raised serious concerns about the poor presentation of the entire records of the volunteer workers or health workers across the country. Our reporter Coris Kanga followed the development and in this report.
Deputy Ministers of the Ministry of Health yesterday appeared before the Library Senate to provide updates on the status of volunteer health workers across the country, including budgetary allocations, payroll processing, and donor support for the health sector. During the hearing, Senate President Republican Alliance questioned Deputy Minister for Administration's Martha Morris for a list of volunteer workers, those already processed and those still awaiting processing.
The name of volunteer workers for country. The hospitals, those that are processed, those that are unregulated, and those that were submitted for treatment.
Deputy Minister Morris informed the Senate protecting that the ministry only got some copies of the documents, including the list for volunteers yet to be placed on government payroll.
We have the volume, so we have 14 about with soft copies.
Meanwhile, Sanoe of Lima County demands that the ministry make available hard copies of the full documentations to continue the names of volunteer health workers across the country for proper verification and scrutiny.
I'm not happy for all the 24 microphone. Students go and put hard copies. Then we can look at it. If we get accurate information from our country, we want to be here to for that. This one copy here from all this.
As the Senate hearing continues following several consultation, President Lawrence for asked the ministry to control the party government to provide the actual amount received from the 2025 national budget for volunteers and workers of the president.
How much you see for the budget year 2025 to now of volunteer health workers?
Though inherit a system where the medical training are supposed to be in the whole community.
Several ministers will call here to talk about volunteer health workers. If we see $100 and $50 went to volunteer workers out there. If you don't have that answer now, you say no, if you get the answer tomorrow.
We take note of that.
Voice platform Musaro from Lupa County questioned Deputy Minister Morris on how funds allotted for volunteer health workers were being utilized.
You don't have 1,500%. So we have a lot of money to get for different people. Is the money waiting for citizens to agree before you go upload it? There's no money taken at TSA or TSA 5 before our people put on the table. What has been given to us has not been able to absorb. So the money is not taking there. The 1.3 that was put in the 2025 budget were all absorbed.
Most of the country's Senator Gallows Bill requested detailed information regarding the overall health budget.
What is happening for the country for 2026?
So our whole budget is for 77 million. So plus the
you the controller, right? The budget then around
77 million in the whole budget.
what was the health budget in 2025?
2025 was 63 million.
So what is the increase from last year to this?
So we had around
Around
40 million.
one are still receiving.
If we look at it practically in and not in
So what is the total budget for the health sector?
we have 110.9 billion.
According to health cost, is it correct?
Honorable Senator, I speak as
He said the bill also demanded a response on the actual amount that comes from outside sources, a tax for the government allocation.
How much do we have on the business funding? Those are funding.
So I will be able to speak for you.
And when we come to DCLA, we are told clearly those issues that we are coming to. And the government gave us the number, the total amount for the government.
For example, 6 funding about funding for COVID-19.
Several lawmakers expressed against the fashion with the presentations and documentation submitted by the ministry delegation. As a result, every town of Gbarntolmah County called for a motion requesting the appearance of the health authorities.
You go out of the building time.
Is that the consensus of the floor? So we say outside the Supreme Court and it's not included.
The voting papers of the land, 74 hours in the college career.
Many thanks to RCR's Senate reporter, Coris Kanga, for the report. Today's development, the Children Rights Advocate Director of Human Rights Watch, Joe Baker, has urged the Liberian government to abolish public school registration fees, warning that thousands of children remain locked out of classroom because families cannot afford the cost of education. Speaking at the Human Rights Watch initiative on school fees and barriers to education in Liberia on the theme, without education, there will be nothing. Barrier that Baker described school fee as a major barrier preventing children from enrolling and staying in school. Baker aligned the 4 key recommendations at improving access to education in Liberia, increased the government investment in education set up through progressive taxation and other measures to ensure schools receive adequate resources to provide quality education. The Human Rights Watch officials said the proposed reforms are realistic and achievable. According to calculation by Human Rights Watch, annual registration fees paid by families with children in public school total at 5 million.
We have a number of key recommendations, and I'm going to highlight 4 of them. One is we're urging the government to eliminate registration fees at all public schools. We know that these are not the only costs that families face, but removing the registration fees would remove a significant barrier for families. It would enable children to enter and remain in school. It would reduce child labor, reduce dropouts, and increase school performance. A second recommendation is to amend the Education Reform Act of 2011 to make it clear that ECE, early childhood education, and senior secondary education should also be free, in addition to grades 1 through 9, that law should be enforced. Third is to increase government investment through progressive taxation and other measures to make sure that the education sector receives the resources that it needs to provide quality education. And fourth is to continue efforts to improve the quality of schooling here in Liberia. Is this realistic? We think that it is. Human Rights Watch has done calculations, and based on all of the children who are currently enrolled in public school here in Liberia today, the registration fees per year are about $5 million US. That's a lot of money for families, but it's not that much money for the Liberian government. If the government paid that money directly to schools so they could eliminate their fees, it would only increase the education budget by 4%. Another thing is that the Excel project that I mentioned earlier provides a concrete pathway. It has put $18 million specifically designated for school grants. These are sums of money that will be paid directly to individual schools to help cover their maintenance, their expenses, their operation costs, so that these schools can reduce or eliminate their registration fees. And this program is supposed to reach 90% of all primary schools by 2029. This project gives the government a chance to expand it even further to junior and senior secondary schools, and then to abolish registration fees permanently. Removing financial barriers isn't just in the interest of Liberia's children, but the entire country. Liberia can't develop as a nation when it doesn't have an educated workforce. Over the last 40 years, research has found that investments in education have been responsible for 50% of global economic growth and 40% of poverty reduction. Even economists say that education is one of the best investments that any country can make. So ensuring that public education is adequately funded and removing the financial barriers that are keeping children out of school is essential for recognizing children's rights and advancing Liberia's development. So just to conclude, I want to thank you again for being here today. Whether you are a student, a teacher, a principal.
Jobika, she is the Children's Rights Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch. They're speaking today in Monovium. Meanwhile, Jobika has presented findings from the 6-month comprehensive investigation by Human Rights Watch doing an initiative on school feedings or school fees and barriers to education in Liberia, saying the organization found that financial barriers remain one of the biggest obstacles preventing children from accessing education. Because the investigation revealed that school registration fees are forcing thousands of children out of classroom, pushing many into child labor, delayed enrollment, and eventual dropout.
So we began our research 6 months ago to try and find out why are so many children out of school? What are the barriers that are keeping them out of the classroom? We found many different reasons, but one of the most prominent was school fees. That registration fees are a huge barrier for many families. But first, let me tell you how we did our research. We visited 21 schools across 5 countries. We interviewed almost 180 people. We interviewed parents, teachers, principals, school administrators, and some of the child advocates you're going to meet in a few minutes conducted peer-to-peer interviews with more than 60 children and youth to really hear from individuals directly affected by education about their experiences and the barriers that they experience. The counties where we did our research included Montserrat, Rambasa, Margany, Bong, and Nimba. We found that school registration fees in Liberia's public schools violate national and international law. They harm Liberia's children, they deny them their right to education, and it also harms Liberia's development as a nation. The fees affect children and their families in a number of ways. First, Liberia has an overage enrollment crisis. The most recent school census found that more than half of primary students are 3 years over the age for their grade. And when you get to junior and senior secondary, it's over 60% that are overage. In our interviews, we spoke with parents who said that they didn't start their children in school until they were 7, 8, even 12 or 13 years old. And that the major reason was that they didn't have the money for the. I met one mother who said her daughter didn't start grade 1 until she was 12 years old, and her son didn't start school until he was 13. And she said they started late because I had no money. At a school in Nimba, we saw a roster that this was for a grade 1 class, and in grade 1, children should be 6 to 10, and the oldest was 15. Now, the studies show that when students are overage, they are more likely to repeat grades and more likely to drop out compared to children who enter at the appropriate age. Even when children are able to enroll, they often miss education when their parents can't keep up with them. So we visited a number of schools that said that they allow children to continue studying even if their parents haven't paid. But in many other cases, the schools will send children home if their parents have fallen behind. So this means that children will miss days, weeks, or in some cases even months of education until their parents are able to pay their fees and they can return. A teacher in Margany told us that at his school, lots of children are sent home. Some come back after weeks, but if they don't have the money, they don't come back. When children are sent home, they often feel shame and stigma, and they also fall behind in their studies and find it hard to catch up. We also found a link between registration fees and child labor. Many children are working before school or after school to help pay for their fees and other costs. They sell in the market, they ride motorbikes, they work on farms.
Divorce of Joe Bika, she is the Human Rights Watch Children Advocacy Director. They're speaking today in Monrovia. At the same time, the Deputy Minister for Children and Social Protection at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Welfare Corporation, Gbarntolmah says the Liberian government remains committed to ensuring that every child has access to free, safe, and quality education despite persistent financial and social barriers keeping many children out of school. Gbarntolmah described education as a fundamental right and a critical tool for breaking cycles of poverty.
It is an honor to join you today for the launch of this important report highlighting the barriers to education. I extend sincere appreciation to the Human Rights Watch for this critical work and for helping to elevate the voices and experiences of our children. Education remains a fundamental right and a powerful tool for breaking the cycle of poverty and vulnerability. As a government, we fully recognize that when children are unable I just remain in school. Subsequently, findings of this report are indeed sobering. They reaffirm that financial and social barriers continue to prevent many of our children from accessing quality education. However, they also reinforce the urgency for decisive and coordinated action. In that regard, let me emphasize that the government of Nigeria is not standing still. Through the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection, concrete steps have been taken to address these challenges. In 2024, the ministry launched the State for Future project, specifically designed to respond to the growing numbers of children in street situations. This initiative focuses on identifying, rehabilitating, and reintegrating these children into a safe environment, including formal education.
The voice of Madam Game Tupashi is Deputy Gender Minister for Children and Social Protection. There speaking earlier on, you heard the voice of Madam Jo Bika. She is the Children's Rights Advocacy Director of Human Rights Watch. They spoke today at the launch of a report on children or school fees and barriers to education in Liberia under the theme, without education, there will be nothing. In a related development, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection has concluded a strategic partnership meeting with development partners intended to strengthen support for social protection, child protection, and gender equality programs across Liberia. Gender Minister Madam Bemi Horace Colley says the government of Liberia is intensifying efforts to ensure development partners' investments directly benefit vulnerable communities across the country.
The Ministry of Gender decided that all of our partners were working elsewhere into social protection issues, child protection, gender equality, and so on. So bring all of us on the table together so we are able to see where the investment of our partners are going and how it's supporting the end. So the coordination structure is intended to ensure that people feed us with reports and give us the result based report, because a lot of times we receive reports from partners and tell us the objective of the get report, and when it's time to report, they just tell us about the activities that they've been able to do. We are more interested in the impact that the activities are making on communities and how are the activities addressing the different issues that are lined up in the people. Not just that, we also intend to have the ministry understand the extent to which these investments are covering the country. So we want to know counties partners are already in, what are they doing, what are their target beneficiaries, and to also ensure that most of the partners aren't duplicating numbers. Because, for example, if someone is doing women empowerment, child protection activity, or social protection activity in a particular community, we want to know the target number of persons we're dealing with. And if we have 2 or 3 of our partners working in the same community, and maybe partner 1 is doing 200 women or 200 children or 200 vulnerable people, and another person is doing the same activity but dealing with 150, and another person dealing with maybe 250, and you put all together, it's a good number.
That's the voice of Madam Bemi Horace Colley, she's Gender, Children, and Social Protection Minister there speaking on today. Gbarntolmah County Administration has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Kabbalah Resources Liberia Incorporated to establish a scholarship program valued at $500,000 for students of the county. The scholarship program is intended to provide financial assistance to deserving students from within the county, thereby enabling them to pursue higher education in various feasts of studies. Speaking during the signing ceremony, Gbarntolmah County Superintendent Sky Johnson described the initiative as a major step towards strengthening educational opportunities for young people in the county.
We'd like to welcome you to the Gbarntolmah County. Is about the human agents of family. Our husband on the other and the government.
That's the voice of Gbarntolmah County Superintendent Kayu Johnson there speaking. News just coming in says President Joseph Walker has made additional nominations and appointments to government in furtherance of strengthening public sector leadership and enhancing public service delivery across key government institutions. The institutions affected include the Liberia Broadcasting System, the Liberia National Tourism Authority, and the Liberia Bank for Development and Investment. The nominations, where applicable, are subject to confirmation by the Liberian Senate and the Liberia Broadcasting System. It is an annual Deputy Director General for Administration. She replaces Madam Karatu Bohira as been stated for reassignment within the public service. Patrick Okai, Deputy Director General for Public Affairs, the Liberian National Tourism Authority. That's Jenny Colley, Deputy Director General for Marketing and Promotions. Stevenson Tue, that's Sadie, Deputy Director General for Culture and Heritage at the Liberia Bank for Development and Investment. Joseph Trouble, member of the Board of Directors, and the President call on all appointed officials to discharge their duties with professionalism, integrity, and steadfast leadership to national service. Let's bring you more developments on the program News Desk here on the program. The president of the Liberia, that's the University of Liberia, Dr. Lady Mapayo, and his made claims suggesting that the institution plans to increase student fees, describing the reports as misleading and false. That's how we go home on today's edition of the program News Desk as we take leave of you a recap of our major developments. The Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency confirms the appearance of 4 dismissed officers formerly assigned at the Bravos International Airport before the 13th Usual Circuit Court in Magibi County. Human Rights Watch Children Rights Advocate Director wants the removal of public school registration fees, says thousands of children remain locked out of classroom because families cannot afford the cost of education. Gbarntolmah County Administration signs a memorandum of understanding with Kabbalah Resource Liberia Incorporated to establish a scholarship program for students of the county. Away from Liberia, Ebola vaccine could take 9 months as their tour arises for the WHO warns. We'd love to say many thanks to our rectors, contributors, correspondents for making today's edition of the program a success. Special thanks to affiliate radio station who relayed this broadcast. Thanks to Orange Liberia and EcoBank Liberia Limited for their sponsorship. Thanks to Sheikh Sanoe, who was here with the reading of the news bulletin, while Yampi Dandio Dasaya, Sarah Control handled the technical aspect of the news program. Thanks to Torgbean, who streamed of live on Real TV Live and closing argument on behalf of the news team, I've been a presenter, Gbarntolmah. Good evening.